Ohio State is cruising right now on the recruiting trail. Have the #2 class in the On3 industry team recruiting rankings, and they just landed 5-star defensive lineman Eddrick Houston out of the state of Georgia. Now, this is their second 5-star get on the defensive line. They also got Justin Scott, which shocked the entire recruiting world when he ended up giving his pledge to the Buckeyes. And every defensive lineman that commits to Ohio State, they say the same thing. It was exciting to play at Ohio State, great school, but the defensive line always talks about Larry Johnson and him having coached the Bosa brothers and him having coached Chase Young. Like, the development that Ohio State has, the defensive line position right now, the calling card. I don't know if it's on par with what they have at the wide receiver position, but if that's 1A, this has got to be 1B. So the defensive line is, solidified, I think, going forward for Ohio State. I don't think they're done in terms of recruiting top talent on the defensive side of the football. They still have to get to National Signing Day, but they're rolling right now. The point I want to make here for Ohio State, they're going to have a great defensive line class yet again, and that is what wins you national championships. That is why Ohio State, when they get in games against Georgia, they get in games against, insert whatever Southeastern Conference team here. Yeah, they've got the quarterback play typically. Yeah, they've got the wide receiver play. Marvin Harrison Jr. is an absolute freak show. But I think we need to talk about Ohio State a little bit differently because of what they have on the defensive line. And I know the last couple seasons hasn't been up to par when you look at those games against Michigan. But from a talent perspective, they are never going to be just overpowered on the defensive line. Now, there may be things where they have schematic issues defensively, and they were getting comfortable last year in Jim Knowles' defense. I'm not here to make excuses for Ohio State. I'm just saying when you line it up with the Jimmies and the Joes, Ohio State will always be in that top tier because of what they have on the defensive line. Now, there's a depth thing to that as well. JT Tuimoloau is going to be a dude this year. I think Jack Sawyer is set for a big year this year. But at Ohio State, the trenches is the calling card, and the trenches is what gets you wins well into the postseason. I'm talking Big Ten titles, which they'll make another run at this coming season, and national titles and college football playoff berths and all that. And I also want to make sure we mention this. The last 2 years, there's been a lot of talk about Ryan Day and about the pressure on him, and you even hear things thrown out about, he was born on third base, or, he was, if they don't beat Michigan this year, he's on the hot seat. Justin Scott and Eddrick Houston are both not from the state of Ohio. I want to make that clear. Meaning Ohio State and the brand that they are and the product Ryan Day has elevated them to or kept them at is what is attracting these kids from out-of-state schools. Eddrick Houston, he's in the backyard of Georgia and Alabama, and all those SEC schools come out of the state of Georgia. These are kids that a lot of other top schools want on their team, but they choose Ohio State because of Larry Johnson and because of what Ryan Day is doing over there. And I want to make sure we say this. When it comes to Ryan Day, the way that you recruit at Ohio State, yes, there's a piece of it to where you attract top players, but you got to go out and do it too. Having a big brand just means you got firepower, just means you got some horsepower. Schools at Auburn and Florida are learning that right now. They've had individuals in the head coaching spot there before that weren't prioritizing recruiting, that weren't utilizing that brand. They just kind of thought it would happen. You have 2 guys there that are now going to work on the recruiting trail, and they're seeing the dividends. Ryan Day is prioritizing recruiting. And so for that reason, I think there needs to be a little bit more respect put on his name. Just because Ohio State's been cruising altitude for a little bit here doesn't mean he isn't responsible for still steering this plane and landing guys like Eddrick Houston and like Justin Scott. His staff that he has in place, you're still responsible for that as the head coach. So like I mentioned, #2 class in the entire country. Sounds like they're in good position right now going forward. Landing Eddrick Houston out of the state of Georgia was huge. Expect that defensive line to once again, in true Larry Johnson Buckeye fashion, to be nasty for years to come. And with that being the case, expect them to be in that top tier of college football for years to come as well. Hey y'all, thanks so much for watching. Subscribe to the channel here to make sure you don't miss an episode of The Hard Count. Also be sure to check out other videos on the On3 YouTube channel.